Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. Today we have an exclusive interview with Dr. Monzer Kahf. Good morning, Dr. Monzer Kahf.
Good morning. Wa alaikum assalam wa
Thank you for
rahmatullah.
joining us today.
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Monzer Kahf is a well-known Islamic economist, and he is an expert in Islamic financial contracts, and he is also the professor in Hamad bin Khalifa University, which is a member of Qatar Foundation. Dr. Monzer Kahf, how are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
for,
I am very glad to be with you.
A very short time for this conversation or interview. Dr. Monzer Kahf, we want to know what are the main or the basic difference or the feature of or characteristic of Islamic finance or Islamic economics as a whole compared to another economic system or another finance system. Would you please give a brief information about that?
The area of or the principles of Islamic economics are normal, rational principles for virtuous, productive life. The point I want to emphasize in this regard is that there is nothing other than what is rational in Islamic economics, with a little bit of improvement of our normal rationale that we sometimes take it for granted where we have some fallacies. For instance, is it really in the overall macro interest of people in any country and in humanity at large to produce harmful goods? It's not. So all what the Islamic economics require don't produce harmful goods. If the goods are harmful, of what you call goods, they are not goods really, they are bads in a sense. In other words, all that Islamic economics in this regard says that you should not produce these harmful goods. And how do we say it? By not defining them as properties. They are not a thing that may be owned.
So they will not include it in...
They are not included in properties, in things that if you don't own it, you cannot buy it, you cannot sell it. It's not a property, it's a harmful thing.
So is this a basic concept of mal in Islam? Or
that's right. And this is
for Islam or also in the...
Well, this comes from the basic concept of what is mal in Islam, which is not the same as in conventional economics, usually capitalist economics call it actually, or even socialist economics, because they both of them do not care about the value system of it. So the zakah makes that minimum a necessary obligation to be circulated from the rich to the poor. In other words, what we say, okay, you are free and you should exercise your complete economic freedom. The Sharia puts it in a way that is a lot stronger than what it is in the capitalist system, that people are fully authorized over their properties. They can do whatever they like, and no one, including the government, has any right to limit that authority. Yet at the same time, we say that the law itself, the Sharia itself, the Constitution itself, the Word of God itself institutionalizes that formal circulation, obligatory circulation of wealth from the rich to the poor, and establishes a right in the full sense to the poor in the wealth of the rich. Now, this you don't find in either capitalism or in socialism. While Sharia, Islamic economic system, recognizes in full the importance of properties of mal and the authority of people on their own property, At the same time, it establishes a right to circulate wealth continuously from the rich to the poor, so that you create a dynamism in the economy that is not even in the hand of the government. That's required by the system itself. And I'd rather say it should be even outside the government. It should be obligatory, but in the hands of the NGOs, so that they reach the proper destination, not on authority basis, but rather on social knowledge basis. These principles are reflected also in the Islamic finance and banking. In Islamic finance and banking, one important thing is we always relate any financial transaction to the real market. In other words, we set it as a rule. Islamic finance is asset-based, goods-based, services-based, commodity-based, real assets, real transaction, real economy-based. That is, there should be no financial transaction that does not also have a movement of properties, of goods and assets from one hand to another. Now, by doing that, we are bringing back the financial transaction to be subservient of the real economy transaction, instead of being a source of revenue itself. The revenue comes from the assets, the real assets in the economy. Now, this is one. Another reflection of this principle is we don't accept all virtual assets. So options and futures and all these are not considered asset at all, and therefore you don't spend the resources in them. You render these resources to the real economy to produce food and items of use and of benefit to human beings. The second point, which is also a reflection of the principles of Islamic economics in finance, is that we create the finance in a way that includes people and accommodate all kinds of people regardless of their faith or religion or location or whatever. It goes from microfinance to the macrofinance, financing governments and large corporations in the same, applying exactly the same principles. A third point, which also reflects the principles of Islamic economics, is that finance is not based on the basis of lending, because lending itself does not produce additional utility. Finance, especially now we come to the sources of funds in an Islamic bank, we depend on partners rather than depending on lenders. So the depositors in the Islamic banks are partners. They bear part of the risk, so the risk is diffused in the economy instead of being focused and centered in few hands. And again, also the legitimacy of a return, of having a return, is based on owning a real property. So the bank becomes only an agent of the depositors, not independent. It works as an agent, wakil.
Does it mean that we will have more stable economy and we will have a smaller chance for a crisis?
That's right. I mean, smaller chances for crisis come from three angles in Islamic banking. One angle, by refusing and rejecting the imaginary properties like options, futures, and swaps, and all that. We refuse them. These are not assets, you don't deal with them. So you are cutting off a major part of speculation. This is one. Two, by relating every transaction
with the real market,
to the real market, instead of being debt only. In other words, if you put it in a different way, by rejecting the debt-based transactions. Now here again, we remove another big part of speculation in the market. There is no speculation on interest rate. There's no need for it because you cannot trade debts. Interest rate requires trading debts, and it is based on trading. And if you cannot trade it, then there is no need to speculate on that. If there is any room for anticipation of prices, it is prices of real goods and services, not prices of imaginary and purely financial transactions. You see, this is where big losses and big profit, both big losses and big profits, are speculative by nature.
Yes.
Okay, this is where they come in pure financial transactions. In real goods, you cannot. Now, a third one, where if you link every single financial transaction to the real market, it means the financial sector will not expand beyond the real sector. This also cuts off the third source of crisis. So you definitely, Islamic banks and Islamic finance are much more resilient to financial crisis because of these three elements, which are extremely important.
Okay. Dr. Monzer Kahf, we are very thankful and very grateful to have you in this interview, and we are hoping and we are waiting for you in Indonesia.
Inshallah.
To visit our university and also to visit Indonesia and to see how the development of Islamic economics and especially Islamic finance in Indonesia. Thank you. That's our interview today. Inshallah, we'll meet with Dr. Monzer Kahf again in the other occasion and maybe in Indonesia.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inshallah. Barakallah feek. Alaikum assalam. Barakallah feek.